Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
All right, we're talking the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens AFC wildcard game, if you want to call it a game. It
the
was
second wildcard game on Saturday.
And the second one that was kind of a lopsided game. Obviously, the score wasn't as bad as how the game looked.
Yes.
And geez, the one statistic, if we're just going to jump into things that were glaring, that anyone watch this game will jump right off the page. The Ravens ran for 300 yards.
Yeah.
That never happens in an NFL game. Well, you know what? The Colts did it. They Colts 330 yards, set the franchise record earlier. Jonathan Taylor, making good for dropping the ball. But I mean, in a playoff game against a division rival, you give up 300 yards on the ground, and
your
on
defense gives up 29 yards rushing.
Oh, right. And the other team only rushes for 29 yards. And the other team being the Steelers, who it seems like it's a bit more of a relic of the past, that this is a team that can run the ball and stop the run. I mean, you hear that.
I don't know where that happened. Yeah.
You hear the analysts talk about that. It's like, no, they're not. They can't do either of those things. And the Ravens are the team that can do that. Not
I know, it's crazy.
Not the Steelers. And it's shocking to me the Steelers ever beat the Ravens this year in that rock fight of a game.
Yeah.
And instead the Steelers are can't run the ball and just throw YOLO balls. Is their offense. Now, to be fair, Wilson is awesome at downfield passes, and some of those he put it right in the bucket every time when he still has that.
Yep.
And the better George Pickens, I guess, showed up here, or at least somewhat better George Pickens. I mean, man, he does when he's on. It doesn't matter how you try to guard him. He is a weapon, and he's going to get yards as long as Wilson has some time to get it to him downfield.
Yeah, Pickens is good. He's really good at creating space for himself with his legs or with his arms. So he did that a couple times. Got called for it once.
But like
it's this was just a crazy game. We've talked about it before going into this game. First of all, it went exactly how we thought. It was Baltimore. We felt pretty good that Baltimore was going to win by 10, and it was going to be under the total, which it was. So we got under this one. A little sweaty under because there was no points scored in the fourth quarter. So that's what helped us for that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was but other than that, it went pretty much like we thought. And we've been saying, the last few weeks going in for Baltimore because Baltimore's looked really good. Their defense looked really good. And you don't want Baltimore to get ahead and then have to deal with Henry, which is exactly what happened. He ran for 186 yards, 2 TDs, and in the second half, it's just so hard to stop him. Because the defense has been on the field a lot, and he's just a bruising fast running back, and it's
smart.
It's just so that's such a perfect recipe for winning in the NFL is going up and then just handing it to someone like that.
They had a 13-play drive for whatever it was, 90 yards, touchdown, all rushes.
Yeah.
There was no passing. I thought that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. That's got to be the most demoralizing thing. I mean, Tomlin must be thinking, God, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Every coach, I've said this multiple times, no coach would ever pass the ball if they could do that. There's no reason to risk the ball ever.
I think you said it earlier, one of our earlier shows, where it's like there's nothing better. One of the coaches said there's nothing better than running for a first down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? No, it was amazing. And it was at the beginning, it was sort of when Jackson was running a lot, I was sort of like, oh, that's interesting that they, but then they sort of stopped doing that and just went back to, the running with Henry and then play action and stuff and rolling out. It was really a dominating performance.
And they spread the ball around without Flowers. So likely Andrews, Aguilar, Bateman, everyone contributed. They all caught important passes, but again, didn't need to throw a lot of passes. Mm-hmm. And none of it looked all that risky or under duress. There was a couple plays there, especially at the end of the half, where Jackson just extended the play. I thought, what is he going to do? He's going to run out of time, and then still it turned into a touchdown. I mean, my God, this type of Ravens performance looks like there's just nobody could possibly beat this team. I just don't see how that type of team can lose ever.
Yeah. No, and just to finish off your point there about that one drive, because that was late in the second half, I think, where they did
Yeah.
like the 8 or 9 rushes in a row, and the time of possession, the Baltimore had 39 minutes compared to 20, right?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah,
any defense, just like the Chargers game that we talked about in our last episode,
yeah.
that any defense, you can be an amazing defense, but when you're on the field that long, just over time, it's going to
It's
be
just
too
too
hard
much.
to, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just too much. So that was now what I will say. Baltimore is amazing. I don't know if, I'd be nervous if anyone has to play them coming up for the next game. This doesn't feel like it was Russell Wilson's fault. He was 20 for 29. There's 270 yards. He threw 2 TDs. He got sacked 4 times, but they couldn't run the ball. They
Well, he
couldn't run
doesn't
the
play
ball. And
defense, and he doesn't
yeah,
run the ball.
yeah. So it's they can't run the ball. It was all on him. I thought he played fine.
Mhm.
You just can't win one dimensionally, like in which we've talked about before. So it's that was, he didn't lose the game for them, but it's
No,
you know,
his lack of mobility compared to previous Russell Wilson he's been
fair.
showing, right?
Yep,
So
you're
I mean,
right.
4 sacks for 19 yards. I don't really put that on him either. I mean, it's not the Ravens do have a real defense there,
Yes.
and he's trying to make things happen, and with zero run game, and I mean 0 run
Mhm.
game, 29 yards. That's nothing.
It's crazy.
It's pretty easy to just attack him all game long, and even with that, he managed to complete a couple of awesome downfield passes for touchdowns. So
Mhm.
that's what he's got. That's what
Mhm.
he's capable of in an offense that's just completely limited with no run game.
Mhm.
This is what else did you expect? I actually thought that was impressive. They got that many points, or
Yep.
those 2 plays, or the 2 touchdowns. The way this game was going, I thought they could even be shut out. It was bad.
Yeah.
Like the end of the first half, over the yards, 300-5 or something.
Yeah. It was
It
bad.
was just laughably bad. And then they came out and they had some real juice in the second half. In the
Yes.
the first few minutes of the second half, both the offense and the defense showed some life.
Mhm.
So Tomlin still got something to say, and the players still have something to respond with. But it's just too much. It was just overwhelming, and
Yeah.
that the Ravens weathered that storm pretty easily, and it was never really in doubt. So
No. No, and that's a good point. Like, because once they, Pittsburgh sort of realized they couldn't run the ball and they could only pass, they did it, and they did it pretty well, like considering,
mhm.
and then once Baltimore adjusted, then it was sort of over, because then when you can't run the ball and then you just go one dimensional, it's just going to be too tough. And at that point, Baltimore was up, and then you Pittsburgh just couldn't stop Derrick Henry. So
Yeah, and they just ground them into dust. It was
yeah,
just, I mean, look at this. The Ravens had 50 rushing attempts and the Steelers had 11.
yeah,
And
that's
out of those
crazy.
50, they ran for 6 yards per rush. Like, it was, my
Yeah,
God,
no,
every coach's dream, this game right here. Every
yeah.
coach would take this 10 times out of 10.
Really clean game, no turnovers, so
Yeah, no
it was just
turnovers.
all one-sided.
Relatively clean from a penalty perspective. I mean, Pittsburgh had 7 penalties for 40 yards. Ravens had 3 for 14.
Right.
And when you're getting run over like that, yeah, you're probably going to get a couple more penalties.
The
And
penalties didn't feel like it did in the Chargers, like, Houston game, where it was like that 2nd and 40 at one point was really
no,
crazy, right?
that was just a funny series.
Yeah,
It
but
just went straight backwards.
yeah.
But yeah, there was no major penalty issues here. It
Mhm.
was just a team just a dominant team. The other team just had nothing for them. We said this. I thought the Ravens were going to kill them. And this almost exactly. Well, this was our bet. Our bet was this exact outcome,
Yeah,
more
and
or
it was
less. You know,
in the
to
under, so
cover the spread and the under.
yep.
So, so Ravens look like I mean, we have to assume they're the one team that might have a chance to take out the Chiefs on the way to the Super Bowl here.
Yep.
I mean, I can't picture the Bills putting in this kind of performance because they just they can't do a 300-yard rush game against anybody.
Yeah.
Now, they're good, and
I
their
know.
run game is way better than the Bills' run game ever used to be.
Mhm.
But Jackson and Henry is something different that nobody in the league is capable really
Yeah.
of that.
No, that's what it feels like that way.
And then so arrows pointing up for the Ravens. They look like they're peaking at the right time here. Like
Mhm.
this again. They have to prove it against the Chiefs. I know I'm already jumping way ahead, but that's the conversation about the Ravens is Super Bowl. Like anything other than taking the Chiefs to the wire, if not beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. That's what this team is for this year with
Yeah.
the addition of Henry. And now that they finally cleaned up the pass defense to some degree. Although Ravens fans probably sweat a little when they saw the Steelers so easily burn them downfield this game, like in the
Couple
second half.
times.
And
Yeah.
I thought, oh no,
Yeah.
a weak pass defense is the only thing you can't have. It's the one weakness that a team that just grinds you down with running. It's not a good weakness to have, because it's the one thing the other team needs to be able to exploit to get back in the game, which the Steelers, they were doing it. They got those 14 points were because just the pass defense can give up big plays. And we haven't seen that for 6-7 weeks now from a while. For the last month or so, the Ravens have tightened that stuff up. But for most of the year, the Ravens had the worst pass defense in the NFL. But specifically pass defense, their run defense was good, but they were awful in pass defense. And just a little bit of it showed up here that I'm imagining Ravens fans made him sweat a little, saying, we're not losing this game. But my thoughts immediately went to Mahomes and Worthy when I saw that. Immediate. Well, because I'm watching this game with the eyes of the Ravens making it to the Super Bowl, and the hurdle they have to get through. Well, they'll probably have to go through the Bills too, but the major hurdles, they got to go through Kansas City or one of those two. They got to go through one of them, probably not really anybody else in the AFC. So is their pass defense going to hold up against Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? That's all I was thinking in the second half.
Really?
And watching how easily when the pressure was on, the Steelers could do it and just throw. I'm like, Mahomes can throw that pass. Allen can throw that pass. They both have receivers that can get to that position. Now, maybe neither team has somebody quite like Pickens, but Worthy's got that kind of speed, and Mahomes has that kind of arm. So all I was thinking was, man, I bet you the Ravens fans don't quite like the way that looked.
I felt differently watching it. I felt like it was Pittsburgh wasn't running the ball. They knew they had to pass. They made some adjustments at halftime, and Tomlin is a good coach. Like he's been there a long time. Russell is played well. And so that to me really looked more like, as opposed to bad defense, like it was the offense that had their last gasp of executing well. So that's what it looked like. So at no point during the game that I ever felt like Baltimore's defense was bad. Because it did feel like that at some points earlier in the season where stuff was wide open, and it wasn't that. But you're, that's the, if it happened anymore, I'd agree with you.
If there was another,
if this was like a 34-30 or something and Pittsburgh moved the ball better, then that would have been concerning. Yeah.
That's what I was starting to think. Like if this ends 28-21, that won't feel good for Ravens fans, because I mean, Pittsburgh ends up with 280 total yards, and 260 of it was in the second half.
Yeah.
Like that can't feel good.
No.
So they outgained them in the second half. Like the Ravens had 300 in the first half alone. Now, obviously it doesn't matter that the game never felt really in question, but the fact that Pittsburgh could gash them like that is just enough to make Ravens fans sweat and think, ugh, there's that defense from earlier in this year showing up a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Which is crazy because Kyle Hamilton's so good. It's just, anyways. Well, okay, so that's the Ravens. There's, man, looking good rolling into next week. What do we think of the Steelers here? Like, is this going to be I've actually heard some people, I don't know if it was Coward or who it was. And now, obviously, some of these big time pundits that are on TV just have to say something controversial. Maybe, I don't know. Like we're just doing our thing here. We just say whatever.
Average fans watch football.
Average
Saturday
fans
and Sunday.
We just want to watch. We just want to be entertained by football. But I've heard people make the comment that it's just time for Tomlin to go.
What?
It's
really?
Well, yeah. Oh no, it was Middlecoff, and he was just. So again, I don't know if they have a formula for ratings and it's just controversial, and so they say it just to get more people talking about. Like, look, we're talking about it right now. But is the idea that now we're 10 years now that they haven't won a playoff game, at least 2016, 29 years.
Yeah. They've had a really good winning record, and it's never really felt like to me, it hasn't felt like a coaching problem. Like in the off season, I felt like they made some good moves, like and were, in a position to be successful. Now it just didn't work out like that, but it didn't, I don't know. It never really felt like a coach, but I might be wrong. Whereas with the Pittsburgh fans will tell us they're really,
what's the sentiment in Pittsburgh? Like,
they want
to
interested to see how they feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, they won a Super Bowl with Roethlisberger, and since then they've just been like whoever at quarterback, and none of it's worked.
Mhm.
We're 9 years without a playoff win, but always a winning record. So you're never drafting in the top 3 or 4. So you never have. I mean, doesn't necessarily mean that the best player. I mean, Jackson was what, the 28th pick.
Mhm.
Like these players you can find Hall of Fame level players that can change a franchise without them being in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But you've got to you got to find them, and they haven't found them. And
No.
it
They
feels
found some good players, but not
right,
not
but
yeah.
specifically at quarterback, Fields
Right.
isn't it, and Wilson's not it. So do the Pittsburgh fans really like going into next year with these two?
Yeah.
Either who cares? Either one of them. Do they really
Yeah.
think that, oh, now we got him?
Yeah.
Let's say it another way around. In this division, do you actually think you have anything in your organization that you would confidently put up against Jackson or Burrow and think you have the quarterbacking advantage?
No.
Impossible. You'd have to
Mhm.
trade for Mahomes or Josh Allen.
Yeah.
That's it. No, I mean to have the advantage.
Yeah.
You have
Oh, yeah.
you have 2 of the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL in your division.
Mhm.
And they ain't going anywhere. They're young. So
And
you've
the
got to deal with Jackson and Burrow for the next 10 years. What is it that you're putting up against them? Fields and Wilson?
Right, and the only way you combat that is having a lights out defense and an excellent running game, which they
I don't agree.
perennially have,
Mm.
but not now, like, and not today or
Do you
not
mean
yesterday's game.
the lights out defense? Well, you know what? A lights out defense might help, but a running back like Henry, be nice to
Yeah,
have
I mean,
him, right?
no, but I mean, it's yeah, if you have a lights out defense and you can run the ball well, then you've got a chance. But
You
it's
got a
the
chance.
when you run for 20 yards, then you give up 300, then nope, you got no
Yeah.
chance. And
It's
with the QBs like you're describing.
when you're stuck with them, you got to deal with both of them
Mm,
for 4 games a year. It's just
good
those two.
point.
And who know? I mean, obviously, it's the history would say otherwise. But if Cleveland somehow can hit on a draft pick like a Jaden Daniels type, well, he's good,
Mhm,
but we're not sure if he's going to be good in the NFL, and it turns out to be really good.
mhm.
So, or a Bo Nix type thing, like a real. If the Browns can pull a real guy and get a real play. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it with the Watson tore his Achilles again.
Unbelievable,
It's the same
unbelievable.
one right after rehab.
I think
He's got to
so.
be done for good now, right?
I can't imagine any scenario where he'll be able to come back and be effective.
Ever.
Yeah,
All of 2025, he's done.
yeah.
Do you just do the same surgery again? What do you
That's a
do when you
great question. I don't actually know that because but
Yeah,
typically the torn Achilles, the surgery is really good and the tendon is stronger than it was before, like because they're able to fold it over so many times
right.
and suture it, have the what they call it, a augmented device, which is like it's reinforced with wires and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really rare for it to tear again. Like it's
So it wouldn't. So again, I'm kind of leaning into you here. It's not likely it would tear at the surgery point, but somewhere else even, or
well,
could.
usually they replace like it's not just the one area that they fix, like it's sort of replace the tendon kind of thing.
Oh,
And that's
jeez.
why it's so strong. Like so
Right.
it's a really rare for the reconstruction to tear. So
What a mess.
yeah.
So would they do the same
I don't
surgery,
know.
or
I
yeah,
honestly don't know.
mechanistically? I'm curious. We got to do another podcast
Yeah.
on how
Well,
does
I'll
that
look
even
into it.
happen?
I'll look
Yeah.
into it, see what happens. But it's
Well, we
yeah,
strayed
it's
a little
really
bit into the NFC North here, but Ravens, man, they look strong. Steelers, I don't know what this team's supposed to do moving forward, given what we just said about the 2 of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in their division,
yeah.
and the wild card if the Browns can find. And then who cares about the Browns? They got to get past these 2 teams, and they can't.
Yeah. And the recipe to go up on to beat Baltimore would be going up on them early and sort of forcing them to pass and having a strong enough passing game that where you like can move the ball against them because you don't want to have to face Henry late. So
But Jackson can pass.
I know.
I just don't know how you beat. I don't know how this team, the Steelers, can. If that's the type of performance the Ravens are capable of, I don't see how the Steelers. They're going to not have a lot of success against the Ravens moving forward until they straighten out that run game and probably get a new quarterback.
True.
All right. Well, but you know what? Steelers still another playoff season for the Steelers. So, I guess you can't complain about that part. All right. Well, that's it for the Saturday wildcard games. Come back to the channel in a couple of days for the rest of wildcard weekend. We'll catch you later.